here's where I want to talk about just like where EV cars today are in general. My first thoughts of using them, moving away from just specific to the Mitsubishi Outlander or any specific car. So, I've never owned an EV vehicle in the past. I've never even owned a hybrid vehicle. But I've heard stories of many people using them over the years, and I have to say, it's a mixed bag for sure. I think the technology that's out there today is absolutely amazing, and I love following where it's going, and it's definitely the future. And even if you might not see the effects of energy and conservation, just not having to stand behind a car that has smog coming out of it while it's running is really nice. So there's definitely positives to having an electric car. However, I still feel like we're still at the early adoption phase, and I totally understand why people might not want to adopt it. And this is coming from someone who works in conservation, you know, really wants to live a greener life, but the convenience factor is still very hard to beat with a gas powered motor in many cities, particularly in the USA. Yes, there is a shortage of places to plug in. Like, even when I was plugging into the first Shell charger, right as I parked, there was a car that passed by that called out to me and asked if I was still using it. So there was people waiting for it. And then the second fast charger, it was all filled up. So I kind of had to wait in a parking spot nearby and kind of stalk the area so that once one went out, I like swooped in and took that spot. So there is a high demand. I think definitely there's not enough electric chargers out there as well. There's still the range anxiety that people have with electric cars if they are able to make it to their destination with enough charge. Luckily, with my plug-in hybrid, that's less of an anxiety because it always could fall back to gas. But even if there were more chargers, the convenience of how quick it is to fill up at a gas station versus the time it takes to fill up or power back an electric vehicle is still a hindrance for sure. And it's getting better with longer range vehicles out there, so you don't have to find a plug somewhere anytime soon. But for many cars, especially for people who want to drive road trips or long distances, they find themselves having to add hours extra to their trip to search for an available spot and also wait at least 30 minutes to an hour to charge up with even fast chargers available. A lot of people who own electric vehicles have just resorted to renting gas powered vehicles for longer range, which is always an option too, but it can be a hassle. I'm excited about newer cars coming out like the Mitsubishi Outlander, where it can be a lot more affordable to have a car and step into the electric world. So I think this is a perfect car for me to get familiar with the electric world and start kind of using it more, but not having to rely on it and depend on it. Another reason why I think it is still very much in its infancy, early adopter, is the technology. You need to jump through so many hoops to actually get charged up at a charging place. Right now, I've just tested two. It's still very early impressions for me, but it seems that every single charge place needs an app, at least in the beginning. And the apps, they can fail. It failed for the first day I was using it. And it was something, I feel like it's something that could easily happen to others. I admit I was using the apps a little bit unconventionally, but I was just surprised that the apps broke so much for me that I ended up getting locked out of all Shell power places for pretty much the rest of the day. So my first place I went to was a Shell Type 2 kind of medium charge area by a shopping area. I downloaded the app and it worked as expected. I was able to fill up for the hour and disconnect, and they paid me a bill. But of course, I had to sign up for a Shell account. I had to link my credit card and just scan the QR code, enter in the station number. While all those steps initially, they took a couple minutes, it was still more steps than at a gas station. But that went as expected. It worked. Then I found a fast charging area actually through the Shell app. So I found an EV Go station and I went there, and Shell had the option to actually purchase the EV Go charging through the Shell app. Now, that was a huge mistake. And I knew in the back of my mind, I'm like, it probably might be best to go through the EV Go app themselves, and maybe they might even have promotions through their app. But I was thinking, let me just test going through the Shell app, because if this works, then I won't have to download and sign up and register and go through all those steps again for a whole nother app. So I just decided to go and test out the Shell app. And that's where things went wrong. So I was able to plug it into my car and it started charging, but the Shell app immediately had errors saying that it was outdated and it was trying to refresh. And I went to a coffee shop and I came back about 45 minutes later because it was still showing that the kilowatts was going up. So I was thinking like, well, I'm just gonna still let it charge, and it looks like it's charging okay. It's just that the app's having issues updating, but the charge is still going. So I let it go. But after about 45 minutes, I went back to my car and the EVgo's charging station had an error, and it said this error here, and it stopped on its own at 40 minutes. So I was like, well, that's a disappointment. Like, you already have to wait like quite a long time to wait for your car to charge, and you come back and it can potentially error out and stop on you before it's finished charging. So on the app, on the Shell app, there's an option to stop charging. I tried pressing that. It says to manually unplug. I manually unplug it, but then it goes back to saying it's still charging. But the kilowatts is frozen at least. So I'm thinking at least maybe I'm not getting charged anymore. The kilowatts is frozen, is not moving, but the message, there's still an error message saying outdated. I just cannot exit out of that message. I cannot stop the charging. It's on the app. It still says it's charging. So weirdly enough, I was able to still use that EVgo charger station right away again. I just use it through the EVgo app, and that worked fine. I didn't have any errors there. I did for 20 minutes more. And so I don't know, it was so weird. It seemed like the station was fine. It was just the app was causing issues. So I was like, okay, I got my charge in. I was able to take out the charger, put it back. And so I drove home. The Shell app was still hanging. It was going like 2 hours, 3 hours afterwards. And I decided to call support. And I called support. They told me at Shell, and they were like, it's an EVgo problem. Call EVgo. And I called EVgo, and they were like, everything looks good on our end. The station looks like it's free to use. So you should call Shell. So I called Shell again, and I emailed EVgo. And at the end of the day, none of them were able to help me. And I even went so far as to go back outside in the cold at night and drive to a Shell station to see if I were to plug in a Shell power station into my car to see if that might be like reset things. And then I got the error saying that you can only charge one car at a time through the app. And I uninstalled the app probably 10 times, restarted my passwords, everything, and it's still every time I log back in, it was way more frustrating than it needed to be. At the end of the day, I think I I knew it wasn't a huge deal because it looked like the kilowatts meter stopped going up. So at least I wasn't getting charged anymore. At least I believed. And in the end, it turned out I wasn't really getting charged anymore. However, for Shell, they require you to put a whopping $75 kind of holding deposit down that they charge on your credit card until you finish charging, and then they refund back minus any bill that you have. So I still had that $75 charge on my credit card that wasn't coming off the whole time. And so I talked to the Shell representative, and we also had trouble. We also had trouble kind of logging into my account, and then I asked, like, is there any way you could just like hard delete my account, erase everything, erase my account from existence, and we had trouble doing that. So I agreed to just like wait it out. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be able to like log in actually, and maybe things will be better the next day. So the next day is today, and it looks like 12 hours later, it automatically stopped by itself, and it sent me a bill, and I got my $75 minus the bill amount that was charged, minus the bill amount that I got that back. So it looks like it's all done and resolved. I think I might have gotten a few extra dollars charged maybe on session fees or something. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, I didn't, luckily I didn't spend like hundreds of dollars on my first day trying to EV charge. So yeah, that was messier than I expected. So lesson learned, maybe never use a Shell app, maybe just never use Shell gas. Also, I guess like I was locked out of the Shell stations at that time, but I wasn't too mad because the Shell stations were super expensive, and also super slow. Their session fee was $1.50, and it's only 2 hour limit, and they don't charge enough for me. They charge too slow for me to actually be that usable in 2 hours unless I'm in like an emergency. And they also charge $75 as a holding fee. Like EVgo, I think, only charges like $5 as a holding fee. So that's just something to look out for. I was like locked out of the Shell power up stations, but I wasn't too mad because I didn't really foresee myself using those ever again. But I think the key thing is that there's a different app for every type of charger, and you just have to use the correct app. Don't try to mix and match apps, even if they try to let you. Just stick to their own native app. And the apps can be really cool, actually. The apps are really cool, but yeah, you do have to go through that currently at this time and use separate apps. So that's kind of the lay of the land of just what I experience as my first impressions on EV charging right now. I don't know if like Tesla chargers or others might have a more straightforward time with their own chargers. So this is just like non-Tesla EV car using the competitors out there. So I think even though I've had a bumpy start to EV, I am still very, very excited about getting into the EV world. I have never been into cars that much, but once I got this car, I have started researching a whole bunch, and it's been bringing me down the rabbit hole of just all this off-grid energy consumption research topics. Like, since I don't have a power outlet in a garage I could use, I was looking into portable solar and like solar generators for that, and then that went into the topic of like off-grid living. So it's really going down the rabbit hole of what electric energy vehicles can open for you. So I'm excited to be part of this world and learning more about it. If you guys have any tips or tricks on just like EV vehicles in general, let me know. I'm still so new, still so green to it. Those are just like some things I want others to be aware of, but I still really, really like that EV vehicles are coming out more. And I do think it's our future. And I do want to see more of it because I think it is such a great technology that's going to help just not you as an owner of it, but people around you as a whole with like the air we breathe and so many things. Another positive note is that the cost of EVs, even though I mentioned that Shell can be more expensive than others, the cost of charging up is not that much more and sometimes even cheaper than filling up with gas. So if cost is an issue for you, on paper, it is not that much more, but I did do a video recently how time is money. And sometimes you could waste $1 a minute depending on how much you make per year and all that calculation stuff. So, yeah, time is money, but on paper, the cost of the actual fuel versus electric charge up is not that much more if you go outside your house, and it's even cheaper if you are able to charge at home overnight. So that's just something to think about. You know, there's definitely potential to either cost savings or negligible savings. And if you keep your cars for years, they say like the 8-year mark is a good timeline for keeping a car to make it the cost savings worthwhile, especially for EVs. I think that there's definitely potential savings out there. So yeah, I'm excited to have an EV car. I plan to keep it for as long or maybe even longer than my previous car. And I'm just excited to learn about the new technology that I have access to now that I could actually use. Okay, that's my little talk and first impressions about the world of EV electric vehicles and how I was able to use it with my plug-in hybrid. And yeah, that's the car talk I have for now. I don't expect this channel to turn into much car talk, but we'll see. Maybe I'll go film some upgrades that I make in the future to my car with like the visuals or interior or accessorizing. Who knows? Okay. Well, that's my car video, I guess. Okay, thanks guys for watching. Bye.